Greetings, everybody. This is James Gillen with the City Stargate Radio and also As You Wish Talk Radio on the BBS network. But we're also on Telegram and X and everything. We're out on almost all the stations. So we've got a crazy show. We ended the last show with Gods and Goddesses Don't Do Boring Things. And it seems we're riding the edge between ascension and total annihilation. Many keep asking me about my thoughts on Iran. So, I think any religious fanaticism is outside of universal law and creates division, wars, trespasses on rights and freedoms. And no matter what religion it is, the fanaticism, has to back off. And if we really do follow the words of the masters and the teachers throughout all the sacred books, it's all about love and service to others and making your own personal God connection. So all the other stuff is nonsense. So we need to get back to that. But anyway, back in the 80s, Iranian women didn't have to cover them, their entire bodies, and there was freedom. In fact, if you look at pictures in the 80s, Iran was westernized, and it was an incredible tourist destination. And we'd love to see Iran be free and prosperous again. And backing terrorist groups and proxy wars really needs to come to a stop if we're finally going to see universal peace, and that's where we're headed. So we have to ask ourselves, why is war and disease the two most highly profitable investments in America, basically? And when you take the money out of war and disease, it's amazing. Peace and health seem to follow. So anyway, maybe with a new regime in Iran, we can finally see peace come to the Middle East. As far as Israel bombing them into oblivion, just like Gaza, before taking sides, one needs to know the real history of Israel. So it was Palestine before the Zionist Rothschilds carved it up, and believe it or not, before that, seems everybody was kind of getting along. They're all working side by side, and there weren't as many problems. So we have to ask ourselves, who are we going to side with? The religious tyrants, the Zionists, the war and disease profiteers. I believe if they're left alone, there are wonderful people throughout the Middle East, which most likely would all get along well without the tyrannic leadership, no matter how you package it. So nothing is what it seems. And we're going to have our minds blown when we find out what's really going on over there. So with the intense incoming energies revealing everything and the acceleration of karma, I'd say the Middle East is going to be one hot mess in the days to come. But I think it's going to be over pretty quickly. I do, however, agree, not just Iran. No one should have a nuclear bomb. It's a scorched earth solution and affecting everyone and all life on the planet. So the only solution is forgiveness and universal law, which is coming. We need to de-escalate this whole nuclear thing. And that's coming too. So anyway, so as far as the ICE and No King riots, they're finally figuring out that all of this, is backed by the billionaire eugenicists and their goal to take down America. Just like previous riots, these riots are well funded and well orchestrated. Riot gear, masks, bricks, hammers, flags from other countries, mostly waved by illegal aliens, all have been mysteriously dropped off in strategic locations. They found out that now they're dropping American flags off because the foreign flags aren't faring too well. So anyway, the open borders created a severe tax on our infrastructure, police, and healthcare, and then there were the handouts, free hotels, food, etc., all courtesy of the taxpayer. Soros is major one behind that. So anyway, Soros, Neville Singham, tied to the CCP, and other billionaires, along with their NGOs, mostly coming out of USAID, like Indivisible, Open Borders, Party for Socialism and Liberation, CHIRLA, Coalition for Humane Immigrants' Rights, BLM, they're all driving these riots. Kickbacks from these NGOs doubled, in some cases quadrupled any investment these billionaires made. So it's they're making billions on these riots. So anyway, put $1 million in to start with, and these NGOs get a few million back, of taxpayers' money, and those are all kickbacks to these billionaires. So the people participating in these riots are useful idiots. I hate to say it, serving the international banksters. I should say useful socially engineered idiots. And they all watch CNN and MSNBC and The View. You know. Anyway, and they're serving the international banksters, the New World Order folks, and their Take Down America plan. So the last bastion of freedom, with its constitutional republic, and they just, we're a big thorn in the side of tyranny. So anyway, the majority of violence is coming from paid agitators. So that's coming out. I mean, they're actually paying some of these guys like $4,000 to $12,000, to participate in these things, and they're putting out ads, wanted the most badass, violent people you can get, and they're hiring these people to create the violence. Anyway, so here's a news flash. When you enter a country illegally and war upon that country, you really have no rights other than a jail cell or a boot across the border, basically. So let's not cloud the issue, especially with all the Democratic grandstanding, which are heroes of the rapists, murderers, drug and child traffickers. Is it worth the future votes of illegal aliens, or is there another reason why most Democrats support these heinous criminals? This is insane behavior. Why would you side with criminals unless there's some benefit? So follow the money, So anyway, for those who are flying the Mexican flag, why not just go back to Mexico? Why did you come to America if Mexico is so awesome? This includes other flags as well. If you're an illegal alien protesting in violent protests, it's only logical you're going to be rounded up, locked up, and deported. Try waving an American flag in protests in China, Russia, North Korea, even Mexico. Fly your rainbow flags in the Middle East and see what happens. The very fact that you can demonstrate is clearly a sign that America has no king, only a duly elected president in a constitutional republic carrying out the will of the people. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. Gavin Newsom, in his Let's Turn America into Tijuana campaign, has already lost his bid for president. Look at the California leadership lineup and what they've done to California. And they want the whole, they want the whole, these blue states, especially the cities, the major cities like Portland, Seattle, and San Francisco and LA, take a look. How they doing, Anyway, deadly mismanaged fires, riots, skyrocketing crime, inflation, shitting needles on the sidewalks, homelessness that all homelessness just miraculously disappeared when Xi Jinping came for a visit, and no one knows where they went. And I can't even watch most Democrats on TV because everything they say is a lie, virtue signaling, while critically thinking, morally bankrupt, and integrity challenged at the same time. So, and to be fair, we have to throw some rhinos into that mix. The woke and the left they're posing for are, according to the last election and recent polls, the minority. So they will end up being unelectable, taking themselves out. They won't be able to be elected because, they're kowtowing to the minority, basically, not the majority. Anyway, the FBI has also received documents which reveal the CCP produced fake U.S. driver's licenses to skew the 2020 election with fake mail-in ballots. I mean, that's also going on in California as well. And a lot of the blue states, they're getting driver's licenses and everything just so they can vote, and illegally. But anyway, the evidence is now overwhelming. There was extreme election fraud and tampering, which opened the door to extreme corruption and graft uncovered by Doge. Here's a good one. Now, this is going to be the big one. The Epstein files has come back into the light. According to Barron Trump on X, seems Iran has the files and the Wiener laptop. So that might explain why Obama airdropped billions in cash to Iran and why he was supporting, the ISIS and all these other terrorist organizations. So if the files were released, half of our politicians would be implicated, and the Diddy list as said earlier, the Capitol building would be a ghost town, basically. So, is this the weapon Iran is boasting will change the world? Is this just going to be a huge information dump that they're going to do? General Flynn said the next 72 hours are going to be intense. I didn't read the whole story, but I don't think he elaborated. But you know, here's also to the late Virginia Guffrey, an Epstein accuser and victim, just released her dead man switch with evidence, texts, files, etc. Accusing many famous people, politicians, and billionaires of some pretty heinous acts, including pedophilia, murder, and sick experimentation on children, eugenics, and DNA alterations. All against their will. So Gates seems to be at the forefront of that one. According to this massive dump. So we'll see where that goes. And maybe that's why he and others are saying if the files are released, they're leaving America. Because if America finds out who they are and what they did, I think they'll be leaving shortly. Anyway, speaking of Gates, 31 states are now passing legislation supported by RFK to ban chemtrails or geoengineering, something the Gates Foundation is heavily involved in. They want to dim out the sun. That's their latest thing. They're spraying our skies with everything from heavy metals, toxic chemicals, biologicals, and nanotech with no oversight. We're actually living in a James Bond movie right now with multiple Dr. Evils. Speaking of evil, by the way, the IRS is still unlawfully targeting churches, conservatives, in total opposition to the latest Supreme Court decisions. Whistleblowers and those in the media exposing the corruption and decadence of the dark arts are also being targeted. Maybe an executive order will be necessary to shut them down. It's getting ridiculous. Considering where our taxes are going, as exposed by Doge, they can no longer take the high road. They can't expect anybody with any moral or integrity to continue funding this nonsense. Anyway, a luxury sales tax and the tariffs can easily provide all the funds needed to cover all legitimate government expenses. Notice I said legitimate. Time to launch Jasara. That's going to clean up all this mess. If I was an off-world visitor and had to report to the homeworld about what's happening on Earth, no one would believe me. They would say, hurry, quarantine Earth quickly. Don't let this spread out to the universe. We are in biblical times. Prophecies are coming true. And the end time madness is at its peak, but do not despair. It's always been this bad, only now it's all being revealed. It's part of the ascension process and the fall of the beast. On the flip side, once the chaos is over, we enter into 1,000 years of peace and rejoin the rest of the greater family of man throughout the multiverse. This is all according to the Native American prophecies. We will eventually become unified, one unified people, the people of Earth. The higher councils throughout the multiverse will make their presence known. The Pleiadians, the Orion Council of Light, the Sirians, the Arcturians, the Andromedans, and other spiritually and technologically advanced off-worlders, some of which are our ancient ancestors, will make themselves known. So anyway, this is all unfolding as we speak. So universal law will be firmly anchored on Earth, universal peace, brother, sister, love, individual freedom, and prosperity for all. So that's the end result. But, I'm not so naive to not think that these dark hearts on their way out are going to be kicking and screaming and clawing and trying to create as much damage as possible. So anyway, enough politics. We also have another major geoaffective G+ storm. We're trying to get more information on it, but it's heading for Earth, triggered by X-class flares. And it's going to create more aurora borealis, affect our bioelectric fields, create more severe weather, an increase in volcanic and earthquake activity. And some are already feeling it. The full impact will be before and through the weekend. So, but anyway, keep an eye on the animals. I mean, watch your cats, and your dogs, and and the birds, it's getting crazy the way that they're really acting kind of like what's going on, and they're being affected by this, and they're the most sensitive. Unfortunately, most of humanity has descended beneath the animals, and as far as their their inner sensitivity as to what's happening around them. So we need to pay attention to the animals if we want to know something big is happening. Anyway, the sun and other cosmic forces have always been the driving force behind the evolution of Earth. The weather, earthquake, and volcanic activity. Our sun is connected, like all other suns, to the central sun, the driving force and consciousness of this universe. And there is a hierarchy, there is a vibrational continuum, and there are multidimensional beings on this continuum, and they're like pressing in on the earth. The earth itself is expanding outward, and she's evolving and ascending. So we're like caught in the middle, and there's no way out. So resistance is futile. We are going to ascend, and we are going to move into a higher frequency, the next dimension. And those that are not frequency specific are not going to stay. If they can't raise their frequency and their vibration and live according to universal law in harmony with each other and the planet, and be of service, be a blessing to Earth, they are not going to be here. It's that simple. They're the action reaction principle, or karma, is being accelerated as well. So they're going to take themselves out by acting. When you act outside of universal law, you create karma. It's that simple. And it's not rocket science. We all can figure this out. So anyway, it's all being exposed. I mean, all of it. And you can't miss it. It's all coming up and out. And it's always been really ugly. Now it's all surfacing, and that's the chaos that we're experiencing. And that's part of the healing process that we're undergoing. So anyway, we're all affected. I'm not immune to this as well. I mean, we're getting hit by everything. So we are constantly clearing the unseen negative influences here and clearing out the negative ETs, and the higher dimensional beings are doing that as well. And we've been under constant attack, but it comes with the territory. We just have to buck up and deal with it. But anyway, it's don't become a victim. I love what one master said. He said you can meet each experience as a god or goddess or a victim, and you get to choose which one. And it's time for us to stand in our own divinity and say enough's enough, and anything outside of universal law, don't participate. And you might want to call it out for what it is. I'm guilty of that one. Yeah. No matter what, I'm gonna tell the truth as I know it, and my truth is flexible. So if more information comes in, I'm gonna bring that information out. My loyalty is to truth, not to anything other than that. So I always say, it's make your own personal God, creator, great spirit connection. And your soul should be your guide, not your ego and your intellect. And truth should be, you should seek truth in every situation. Because there's so much social engineering and conditioning and pure deception, especially with the lamestream media. And after years and years of that, there's no way we can know what the real truth is until we kind of learn to tune that out and develop our own inner sensitivity and learn to sense what's true and what's right, what feels right. Take it within, sit with it. See, is this true? Is this right? Is this beneficial to me, or is it not? And go from there. But anyway, we're all going to get a crash course in that in the days to come. So I did promise that we would do some Q&A, and so we're going to go ahead and do some Q&A, and then we're going to finish by again playing some of these marvelous ships that have been appearing here at ECETI. And I want to say one thing about that: the ships here. I mean, just last night I walked out, just grabbed my camera, walked out about 11 o'clock, and right on cue, I looked up. I can see tons of little ships everywhere, just going in every direction. And then the I just kind of did a little prayer inside, and say, hey, is anybody out there? Please show yourself. And then I saw a small flash. So I grabbed the camera and I aimed it up where that small flash was. There was nothing there. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this massive light ship just materialized. And I got it on film too. I got the whole thing on film, but it flew right overhead and it was amazing. But, this is happening everywhere on the earth right now. We really need to go outside. Hopefully on a dark moon is the best, but almost any time, as long as the moon's not too bright. And with the naked eye, you can see these ships. Now, if you have some third gen night vision, you're going to see all the ships. The whole universe is going to open up for you. So I strongly recommend, get some of the military night vision. It's the best. But go ahead and get that. What I film with is I have an old Sony. I think it's a 550V or whatever, and because it captures a lot more light than the other cameras, and it doesn't keep. It always shifts back to the lowest light. And then I have I think it's called night gear. I'm not sure, but I have a third gen night gear device attached to that, and I seem to be getting the best footage with that. There are other technologies you can get that help you do some things. We just bought some new technology, and I can't remember what it is. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm not a real tech person, so it takes me a little longer. But we'll be using that, and it has everything on it. It has the night vision, it has thermal, it has everything on it, and you can see a deer a mile away with that. It's crazy. And we just had another Bigfoot sighting here on the ranch. So some of the Joe and his sons were out shooting, videotaping some of the ships. The next thing you know, they hear these big footsteps coming back to them, and they did see a very large being standing next to a tree. But they didn't feel threatened by it at all. As a matter of fact, they all got really high. So again, we have to master our consciousness, master our fear. And I think if you go into things fearful or aggressive, you're gonna have that kind of an experience. If you go through things with an open mind, a loving heart, and tune into your situation on a soul level, you'll have a totally different experience. And it's kind of nature will greet you with the energy that you project on it. That's just the way of the universe. So anyway, on that note, we're gonna totally cut off. And I wanted to, before we do though, I wanted to grab the. We do have these events coming up, and the genius is usually unorganized. No. Anyway, so we've got the frequency healing workshop with Dr. Jet. And this is going to be an amazing one. It's going to talk about the frequencies, about how we can be using them in healing, increased understanding of physics and touch frequency and related effects on the body. But she's going to cover all that in a lot of the Rife technologies and things like that, which is going to be a great workshop coming up. That's July 17th through the 20th. And then we also have June 27th through the 29th, the Ambassador and Self-Mastery Workshop. And that's the one that I do, and it covers everything: how to heal unseen negative influences, who's who in the universe. You're actually going to be engaging with these beings, these spiritual and technologically advanced beings and ascended masters when you come to this workshop, and you're going to walk away with your own connection and a lot of information and wisdom concerning the multiverse. So check out that one. There's still a lot of space available in that. For some reason, people are kind of slow on that one. And we also have Contact to Ascension with Peter Maxwell Slattery and myself, James Gillen, on July 4th through the 6th. So that's going to be a really good one too, to come and check. And Peter and I are going to share our experiences and cover just about everything. He's like ESETI Australia. He's got amazing footage. I think he's probably got some of the best physical footage of the beings and their ships on anybody on the planet. So that'll be a great one. And again, he's really under the gun. Anybody who's really authentic in the UFO community is just getting hammered right now. So it's time to support them and get involved. But because all the big money is going to the posers and the shills and the planned opposition and the controlled narrative, but that's going to collapse in on itself as well. So anyway, check those out. But anyway, after that note, I want to go ahead and start up with, we've got my lovely assistant, Kathy, here. She's the ESETI Vanna White. And she's going to read to me some of the questions.
When clearing, we ask they be taken to their perfect place. Since they have karma to resolve, how does this remove them from the earth and from affecting us again?
That's a good question. Basically, when we ask the masters, what we're doing is we're clearing our space. And when we say your perfect place, they're going to go to their perfect place where they can continue to evolve. It doesn't, it's up to the masters what they do with them when they pick these beings up. But they're interfering, in the awakening healing process. They're trespassing. If these entities are trespassing on others, these negative unseen spirits, then you have all the right to remove them because they're already trespassing. So you can do these clearings for other people. I do it in events. I clear all the unseen negative influences around major events, classes, workshops.
Before the show.
Yeah, before the show, we cleared a lot. And so it's really important to do that. But when you ask them, when you tell them they're healed and forgiven, lifted and enlightened, you're actually manifesting on their level that experience. And some really nasty ones can choose not to heal. But when Michael's energy shows up or one of the higher beings like that, it's either learn or burn. I've seen dark energy trails with them on their way out, leaving just because they did not want to be.
We got the bang the other day.
Yeah, and they usually bang something on the way out or knock something over. Or it's really interesting. But I've seen them break windows.
Wow.
They're so pissed off that they got tossed out that they end up breaking windows and things. But it's not uncommon.
What do the ETs do for entertainment? Do they get days off, vacation? Do they sing, make music, have art? Oh, and I have heard, but don't know if it's true, that ETs love Las Vegas.
Well, the tall whites love Las Vegas. That's a different group. But, it depends. Each group is different. And some groups are like Spock, they pursue knowledge, and they're very intellectual and things. And others are very emotional, beautiful beings like the Pleiadians. And there's different groups of Pleiadians as well. But they're very loving and very, and they're, a lot of them are just in service mode. I think one of their biggest forms of entertainment right now is Planet Earth. They probably have it broadcasted and people are watching us running around like psycho monkeys. And, they're probably watching us just going, oh God, no, don't do it. They did it. It's just like, but they're always working with consciousness and energy, trying to help us ascend and evolve. And so, they're all different. One Plamaria, once I was meditating, she appeared to me and she was all dressed up. She had this big like bun on her head and she had all gems, and it was crazy. And I go, whoa, what's that? And she goes, well, I'm going to an event. Like it was a big celebration. And I guess she's very high up. And so they have music and they have dancing, and they do, especially the Syrians, the feline beings, they're very physical and they like to move and dance, and they're very graceful and very fast. If they want to be, they can go down on all fours and just gone. And or walk, they usually walk upright. But there's it depends on the group, on what their line like. Some are more focused on protection and healing and things, and others are more focused on just consciousness and raising consciousness, and some just, I mean, we've had beings that just want to party and make you laugh. That's all. That's their job, is to bring humor and light to situations, so
I'd love to hear them sing.
yeah. And the singing and the music is just like off the scales. It's unbelievably beautiful.
Could you expand on the specific beings that choose to pass over ECETI? Who and what are they specifically? What are they up to? Thank you.
Oh, the different ships.
Yeah, the specific beings, and what are they up to?
I was going to say a bad joke, but I was going to do one of those. It's all about me jokes, but I better not, because people take that serious. But like a lot of other people in ufology, think it's all about them. Basically, there's so many different ships that come over. We're having a lot of Palladian ships, a lot of Orion Counts of Light ships, a lot of Sirian ships, Andromedan ships that we're seeing. Inner Earth ships are coming in.
What was that rainbow ship the other day?
Oh, the rainbow ship, that was Andromedan.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got a beautiful picture of the ship, looked like a rainbow, and it was Andromedan, and it was a fifth dimensional Andromedan ship. So it's kind of a lower. A lot of the Andromedans are seventh dimensional, and they're magnetized light bodies and have a light universe. But their ships are light ships, and everything is just condensed consciousness and energy or light. But they're mainly, they're like cosmic cheerleaders. They're here trying to get us, come on, go, we're here. They're not here to do everything for us. They're not here to save us. They're here to help us evolve in the right direction and choose a universal law, basically. And they have been intervening on some real base levels. They've been helping clean out a lot of the low level ET stuff that's been here for forever, that's been suppressing humanity. They're cleaning those guys out. But they don't want to be babysitters. They want to empower us, to live according to universal law and make our own decisions.
What do you think they do when they go inside the mountain?
Well, when they go inside the mountain, there's a huge door that opens on Mount Adams. And on one level, it's like a galactic airport. And they're going in and out, and they're doing all kinds of stuff there, having meetings and things like that. On the lower levels, it's the inner earth folks are all down there in the lower levels, very advanced beings. And a lot of the ancient ones, a lot of the Atlanteans and Lemurians went inward when the pole shifts happened and survived. And they continued. So you can imagine they had extreme technology back then. Imagine where they're at now. It's pretty crazy. But they're in there, along with some other really diverse beings, are all living on the interior. And so there's a lot. And then some things, they preserved everything that's ever been on Earth, in the inner Earth. And every once in a while, things get out. And that's why you'll see a pterodactyl flying around, or even dragons and things. There's some crazy stuff, that some of the cryptids that get out now and then. Not the negative cryptids, but the benevolent ones that people are seeing right now. You're going to see a lot more of that too in the days to come.
Do we know for contact which race will be initiating the first rounds?
Well, see, this is really weird, because we've had contact forever. Way 450,000 years we've had contact, because the first colonies that were here came from the stars. So when you say first contact, it's more like who's risen to the occasion. And they're also negative contacts. So there's negative ETs that have infiltrated almost every aspect of society, and they're being cleared out right now. So contact's been going on with them forever, and a lot of people have worked with the negative factions for control and power and technology and things like that, which hasn't been good. But now the benevolent ones are coming in, and they're kicking these other guys out. and then we have to clean up our side, that's been involved. A lot of these dark projects and bases and dumps and things like that. We have to clean all that up. But so when you say contact, and we've always had contact. Now, as far as the benevolent ones, those that have risen to the occasion, those that have just a strong foundation in seeing the Creator in all creation and living under universal law, they're making contact right now. And you just have to have an open mind, a loving heart, and pure intent to make contact. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. And those who have a certain frequency that have risen to the occasion, those are the ones being contacted. So contact is happening, it's ongoing, it's escalating, and pretty soon they're going to reveal themselves, and it's going to be game over for the controlled narrative. They're gonna fly over and say, "I never knew you."
So this is from Veronica. She sent some pictures. And she says, a few years ago, I took this picture of a light ship. Do you maybe know or have a feeling which race it is, where they come from, and what this ship was doing here?
Yeah, we'll have to shoot that ship to Jason so he can put it on so people can see it. But we did check into that, and it was, what was it again? Was it Andromeda?
Syrian.
No, Syrian. That was a Syrian ship, actually. And actually, Veronica, you're connected to the Syrians. So they're saying hi to you. And the Syrians, they're actually Lyrians as well, but they have three different subsets of them. They're feline beings. Some are humanoid cat-like beings. Some are like panther beings. They're upright. They're upright and they walk upright. And then there's the lion beings, which are seventh dimensional beings. They're like 17 feet tall. And so there's three different groups that come with that, with the felines, and they're all throughout our history. If you look in the ancient Vedas and they're all throughout there. Sekhmet with Egypt, and they were the protectors of the gods basically until the gods fell, and the little g gods, you might say, and then they started breaking universal law, and they left. They said, "I'm sorry, they're very noble and they're very high integrity." And they said, "We can't protect you or be a part of this. You're fighting each other. You're going against universal law. You're doing things on the earth you shouldn't be doing." And they left, and they said, "We can't support this. You're on your own."
You may have spoken about this, but what is your take on the whole idea of going into the light versus not going into the light when we die?
Well, there's a lot of information about that. I really don't think there's a Acme soul-sucking machine on the moon, that grabs everybody. There's so many different stories. Personally, what I experienced in my own near-death experiences, especially the second one, I went through the tunnel that everybody talks about, and there was all these levels of consciousness and energy and planes or dimensions, whatever you want to call them. I just kept going and going. And then I saw this golden light of just pure unconditional love and joy and bliss. And that can't be duplicated by AI or anything else. And there's no explanation for it. You can't explain the love and the joy and the bliss and the security you felt there. There's no words for it. And so I was a light being. I was in my light body, but there was a greater light around me, a greater consciousness and energy around me, and I was having a conversation with it. And so in studying with lamas and yogis and other masters, my understanding is focus on love and joy and bliss, and go as high as you can and don't stop to talk. That's my understanding. It really makes sense if you think about it. I don't know why you'd want to go into a dark realm. It doesn't. There's the void, but that's kind of void of everything. But I'd love to go to the higher dimensions myself.
How does the ascension process work with Nasara Jasara? Could you expand on how this all corresponds with the growing concerns of being able to ascend and not be left behind?
Well, Nasara Jasara are byproducts of the ascension process. So basically, basically it's part of it because it's the foundation of it for Earth, for Earth, and without universal peace and brother sister love and individual freedom and prosperity for all, the Earth isn't going to ascend. I mean, that's where we have to go to ascend, and all those principles are in Jasara and Nasara, so and more. It's just more detailed.
So there's no concerns about being left behind.
If you're left behind, it's because you chose to be left behind, basically. If you choose universal law and release the past and heal and understand that God doesn't even have an ego to judge, it's just pure bliss and joy. It's not a problem. But if you believe in a wrathful God and a punishing God nobody can appease, and you have a lot of fear and guilt and unworthiness, and you're behaving, against universal law, then yeah, you're going to have a problem.
Can you talk about all the forms of divination that you know of?
Yeah, it's in my books. No, the forms of divination. There are so many forms of divination. We use forms that come out of the TIC, the Teachings of the Inner Christ, and it's a blend of East and West. But there's pendulums, there's divining rods, there's table tipping, I can go on and on. There's scrying, there's muscle testing. There's so many different ones. We kind of use them all. But the important thing is, before you do any of that, you have to heal the unseen negative influences and create sacred space, because they're going to influence the outcome if you don't do the clearing and create sacred space. So, divining rods are only as divine as the level you connect to, just as everything else. The mind in which you seek is the mind in which you connect. So if we raise our consciousness and do clearings, we're going to connect to the higher consciousness and energy, which is really important right now. We have to use discernment. And it's really simple. If the information they're giving you divides or separates, or there's not love and joy and bliss involved in the story, then they're probably not very.
They tell you how special you are.
Tell you, yeah, you're the chosen one, or how special you are. Avoid that.
Have you visited the Hawaii Star Visitor Sanctuary yourself?
I haven't, and I was just looking at it, and I got to go over there. To be honest with you, like when I went to Hawaii and we got this place there, it was needed a lot of work. I mean, there was basically a horse stall on it, and that was semi-converted into one room to stay in, and that was it, and a bathroom, that one bathroom. And so we've been doing, everything was overgrown. All the coffee fields were overgrown. We went in and stumped them, and then now they're thriving. It was a lot of work, and and it still is. And I just focused on the work and working in nature and just doing making my own connection. But
I've never heard of it before. This Hawaii.
Yeah, it is, and I need to go. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but
it's on the Big Island.
Yeah, it's on the Big Island, and I think it's over in some lava fields or something. But it's I'll find it anyway. I saw it. Somebody else sent me that, and I'll go check it out. And Grandfather Robert, I think, wasn't highly involved, but I think he died. So I wanted to meet up with him, but then he died. And a lot of the kahunas and a lot of the elders there that I used to have connections with, that I used to work with, have died, unfortunately, and so I don't know. I need to find some new ones.
It seems like the conflict with Iran is already worked out behind the scenes. Almost staged? ? How does this relate to the liberation? Are off-world beings assisting?
Yeah, we covered a lot of that in the show previously, and I think, Barron Trump issued a statement. He says we have total control over the airspace on who does what, and there's a lot more to that story, as they talked about in this. And I think that total control of the airspace includes Space Force and other ET technologies. So yeah, this is a big, I mean, I already covered the show. I don't want to go through it again, but this is a really big, it's a pivotal shift in the end of tyranny. Let's put it that way.
And then this is the last question, and I think you covered this in the show also. She says, can you explain to us more about what is coming with disclosure, the ascension, changes within our physicality, energy, etc.? It would be so nice to have a bit of a roadmap to see more clearly where we are going.
Yeah. Well, basically what happens is disclosure is going to end up disclosing how corrupt the disclosure movement is, and how it's riddled with shills and controlled opposition and the controlled narrative and planned out all that stuff. And that's the real disclosure, is all that is going to be disclosed, and the big money behind it that's controlling the narrative and controlling the media. When you see somebody rise all of a sudden to fame and they're it, be very careful, because there's agency involvement and things like that. And people are going to find out a lot of this movement is being funded by international banksters, basically, Rockefellers and things like that. And they control the narrative, and whoever controls the media controls the narrative. So the people who are authentic are going to start rising up and coming forward, and people are going to hear their messages and feel who they are. And that's happening right now. And they're going to be disclosing the truth on who's out there, who's coming, what's really happening, and how corrupt the whole system is. I mean, even the spiritual and UFO community got corrupted. And that's all going to be made known. So the people who are authentic, who are legitimate, and people who, have the receipts, are all going to come forward in the days to come. And this old program is just going to, because if you follow the money, that money is drying up and it's being cut off. And so you cut off the money, the snake dies. It's like cut off the head and the rest of the snake dies. All right, so that's it. Unfortunately, we're out of time. And so just keep an open mind, loving heart, pure intent, and go to the eStudy website and check out the workshops. We still have a lot of room in the ambassador training workshop. So, we're hoping that fills up real soon. But yeah, on that note, have a great evening. Keep an open mind, loving heart, pure intent, and watch the skies, because they are busy. Have a great evening. Good night.
Come join us and start your free trial today. Watch our weekly podcast, As You Wish Talk Radio, with James Gilliland every Saturday, or catch up on past shows. Watch Skywatch videos of UFOs, orbs, and much more. You can also learn about self-mastering, herbalism, and how to ground and shield yourself from negative unseen influences through our many wonderful workshops. So what are you waiting for? Come join the fun. We're waiting for you.